Hello, welcome back to the International Radio Festival panels. The next panel will be about Let's All Get Along, what the radio industry can learn from the music industry and vice versa. And I just quickly introduce everyone and then the panel will start as we did before. So to my left is David Mingh from Shanghai East Radio Center in China. David was born in Shanghai and he is now one of the most influential music radio hosts in his country. In 1993, David was invited to be the guest host for the weekly show Pop Music's Friend, and he became a full-time music radio host at Shanghai East Radio Center under Shanghai Media Group in 2003, taking the role as host for Tonight at 8, broadcast on 101.7 FM, and 3 years later he was transferred to Love Radio to host its morning show. He also began hosting the weekly Mingh Music Hour every Saturday. Due to his outstanding performances and depth of experience in radio broadcasting, he is the only music DJ in Shanghai working for 3 music channels. He was voted top 10 radio host from 2011 to 2013 in a row, and he is the appointed host for Hello from Shanghai, a bilingual classical music show produced exclusively for Australia Radio as a cultural exchange event. So he is doing a lot of other things, but it would take too long to say everything. And he would give a short presentation about what he's doing in the radio stations. Next one is Sébastien Vounier. 15 years ago, Sebastian took his first steps into the live music industry, as a tour manager of Geneva-based band Maniacs, and his experience there set him on a journey that in 2009 would result in his establishing one of Switzerland's most respected concert and festival promoters, TAG. His company handles more than 120 international artists, including Paolo Nutini, Arctic Monkeys, Radiohead, Florence and the Machine, and Sigur Rós. That's Sebastian. Next one, that's the moderator of the panel, that's Timmy Byrne. So please excuse the misspelling here, that's the name of his wife, but so it's Timmy Byrne. It's also the same, we had to shorten a bit the bio because it's so long. He has over 30 years DJ experience, from his early days as a resident DJ at seminal Melbourne club The Underground to residencies at Red Hat, Saratoga, and numerous other clubs and festivals, including the Big Day Out, Summer Days, and Kiss My Crest. Tim has helped pioneer Australia's dance music industry. Tim has been the driving force behind the dance music institution Kiss FM. As station manager and music director, he has delivered Melbourne a unique, incredible radio experience. His afternoon drive show, The Beautiful Drive, is listened to by thousands both on Melbourne radio and around the world. Some of the guests who have joined Timmy on the Kiss airwaves include Carl Cox, the Fugees, Will Sparks, Boy George, Nervo, and numerous others. Tim's passion for music and entertaining crowds continues to drive him to deliver quality sounds both to the dance floor and the airwaves. So please welcome Timmy. Then we have Toshio Matsuura from Japan, InterFM. Toshio is the founding member of the United Future organization, which was formed in 1990. The collective established the beginning of Japanese club culture and released 5 albums in 32 countries, which gained high reputation in 12 years. After leaving UFO, he has continued to play at clubs and festivals internationally and currently produces events and supervises music for notable fashion brands as well. In 2013, he gathered talented and forward-thinking artists based in Tokyo to produce a project called HEX, H-E-X, which presents Tokyo's progressive form of jazz to the world. The debut album of HEX was released from Blue Note Records worldwide. His radio program, Tokyo Moon, is on air Wednesdays from 11 to 12 at night. Then we have Oliver Rosa. And he worked in several marketing management positions at Warner Music for more than 12 years and left the company as the managing director of the Swiss subsidiary In 2007, he founded the agency Buero Rosa. Ever since, he has been organizing and marketing the Swiss Music Awards in collaboration with external contractors. As the executive producer, Oliver Rosa is responsible for the strategic development and positioning of the event. The SMA takes place as a public event at the Hallenstadion in Zurich and is broadcast live by Swiss national TV. I guess every Swiss person in here knows it. And in 2013, Oliver Rosa has also funded the management agency Boyz. Is that pronounced right? Yeah. Which is responsible for the likes of Swiss artist Anna Rose. And last but not least, we have Daniel Rérat. He's the label manager of Boyz Noise. With over 15 years in the music industry, Daniel Rérat forged a path for himself as label manager at Neuton Medien and B-Pitch Control, and he also found time to write for a number of music publications. Since 2012, he's been at the helm of renowned electronic label Boyz Noise Records in Berlin, and he's the label manager and A&R. So, please, Timmy.
Thank you. Well, today's discussion is all about basically music versus content that is produced in that country and whether countries have quotas and what is the relationship between the music industry and radio stations. So that's what we're going to be talking about. In the case of myself, I think a lot of this topic really is pertinent to commercial radio. The station I'm involved in, though privately owned, is probably not a commercial radio station as such, and maybe we haven't got the problem of limited time and trying to push out all the hits, which I think is what this topic is really about. But I think that one of the most important things to consider with regard to content levels in countries, and as you can read here, France and Canada have requirements for local content, and I must say the French are very good at it, not only in creating quotas for their local content, but in also promoting French music to other countries. But I think what is important to remember is that either you import someone else's culture and put it on the radio, and in particular, I guess, American culture, or you can support your own culture and develop it and those that produce the music that is your local culture. And whether, quota systems and all that sort of thing work, and are they important, and will a radio station of its own accord go and play a lot of local content, really depends on the kind of radio station we're talking about. But having said that, I think David's going to do a little presentation first. And David, we were all talking out the back earlier. David has interviewed some amazing people over the years, from Tony Bennett to Taylor Swift, to he was flown to Melbourne, my hometown, to interview the Eagles. So over to you, David.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank Dario and also the International Radio Festival Organizing Committee for inviting me. Actually, this is the very first time for a Shanghai radio personality to be here. So I will, first of all, I just show you, I would like to make friends with all you and tell you Shanghai is a very nice place to come. And it's a very nice place for doing shopping. The price is really good. And also we have a very nice food, can find spicy food, whatever, because China is a really large country. So if you come to Shanghai, don't forget to call me or contact me. I will be very, very happy to accompany you to tour the beautiful city, okay? Just to give you a very brief introduction of our, radio, because in Shanghai it's quite different from other countries. We belong to Shanghai Media Group, which is state-run, and under the Shanghai Media Group we have a center called the Shanghai East Radio Music Center. We all together have 4 channels. One is 101, the second one will be 103.7 that I work for, and also we have 94.7. This is a pure classical jazz channel, and the final one will be KFM 98.1. This is a pure international radio channel. So, Yeah, this is a Radio 101. This is the youth-oriented. Usually this is the highest rating, rated, music radio station in China. But the target listener will be from 15 to 34. So the keyword for this channel will be dynamic, new, loud, and energetic. So talking about the quota of the radio, we have 80% Mandarin music and 20% international. Second one, also, 101, they have a lot of, music awards. One is ERC Top Chinese Music Awards, promoting the young Chinese musician. This is very important, and also operated by 101 purely. And also we have the second one is CMA Awards. So 101 just united with other, 7 Asian radios to have this kind of award. This is a Mandarin award, okay? And next, in order to promote, the college, music, also those students who wants to be a musician, they also have music on campus. This is a very important activity. They usually, encourage a lot of, students in the college on campus to write music and, to, show their talent. This is also very important. So all this is basically the daily rating. So you will know. Usually for 101 in the morning we have the peak, and so something like this. You can, this is a daily rating. So this is the second music channel that I work for. Had a very beautiful name, Love Radio. 103.7. The target is quite different from the previous one. It should be from 35 to 54. And the range of music we'll play is quite nostalgic. So we usually play music from 1980s to 2000. And 70% Mandarin and 30% international. That, I usually interview Celine Dion, Mariah Carey, these kind of artists. And the next will, also we have Love Radio on the spot. We'll see a lot of, we usually invite international stars to be here, Mandarin music stars. So we usually, have a sort of activity, sort of meet and greet, activity, something like this. And 94.7 will be the third music channel. It's a classical oriented, so we usually have our weekly concert, radio concert, and also just wholly, promote, the classical music. So this is also the daily rating. Finally, we will have international-oriented KFM 98.1. This is purely international music, under, the Shanghai East Radio Center. Okay. Yeah, this is also the daily, more or less the same. This is our app. If you are really interested in our music shows, you can download, this app. You can from Google, whatever, so you can enjoy the shows, of all, our Shanghai East Radio Center and also the other, music stations, in China, mainland China, mainly. Okay. So this is our, Ajimide app, and okay, this is basically what I want to tell people because time limits, this is, if you just, download, Ajimide app, you will see something like this, yeah. Okay, this is basically my presentation. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, David. Or come back on stage. So I think what needs to be considered, as I said before, is the kind of radio station that you're talking about. If you're a pop hits radio station, you've probably only got 60 to 100 tracks on rotation that are going to be highly popular. And in that sort of situation, you're going to find it hard to get new music on there with a very limited playlist. In my case, which is probably the exact opposite, we're talking about DJs that come in who are making their own music. We're talking about KISS tries to actively support Australian music. That's our policy. In Australia, there's no content regulation for radio as far as how much local content we have to do. But my big belief is that if you are putting on air the people that live around you, it creates far more interest to the audience because they know these people than it is if you are playing an international act and it is not really as relevant, I guess, to the listening audience. So in my situation too, where I've seen this work, where the local content is important, was in 2003. I went to Afghanistan to help set up the first radio station in Kabul after the fall of the Taliban. And for the Afghan people, it was Afghan music, which there wasn't a hell of a lot of new music in the previous 10 years. But going back to the 50s and 60s, there were a lot of Afghan artists, and they were very popular on the station, as well as Indian and Pakistani artists. Again, because the audience could relate to them, and it was part of their culture. And I think that's probably a good example of how playing your local content will draw an audience. That's my take on that, but we all have people here from different backgrounds and different types of stations. So what I might do is go and ask everyone here, for example, if they're, in David's case, are there quotas, or are you encouraged with any of your stations to look for local Mandarin-based music and to put it on air? There's a microphone there.
So just as I mentioned, that I just take Dynamic 101 channel as an example. Because in China, I think the situation quite different. As far as in some of the country, probably people more international oriented. But in China, so a lot of people enjoy Mandarin music. So talking about the young generation, Dynamic 101, they have some measures to support those young musicians. First of all, they have a sort of a special chart. This is a kind of chart only the brand new music can get onto the chart. So what they're gonna do is they set up a sort of team with famous DJ and celebrities, or many usually they will just look for all these new music and then talk about which we should decide the position on the charts or something. So after that, every year they are going to have a big award ceremony. On the ceremony, very interesting, there is a special award for new artists. All the artists nominated will get onto the stage and perform to the audience. So the audience will use social media, not only the inside the stadium, also all the public watching the TV show, they can decide who will be the first prize and who will be the second prize. I think this kind of measure just encourage those young musicians very much. So I think this is basically the most important means done by 101 to promote those young
generation.
They will get
them, if they are popular, therefore they will be added to the playlist? Is that what you're saying?
Then probably the record company will sign them, and then something like the Idol thing, so they can publish their music, and a lot of, maybe the performance agent will look for them and give them more opportunity to have performance or something like that. Yeah, this is what we usually do.
Sebastian, in your situation, what do you have to say about this conundrum?
Yes, I think that in Switzerland things change a lot in regards to the local music, because like 15 years ago there was very few Swiss music on radio, and I don't know, Switzerland is a small market, and I don't know how many of you which are not from Switzerland know about any Swiss acts, but they were not famous, and we were maybe ashamed of our bands, except for big bands who had some airplays. But
some big Swiss DJs now.
Yeah, but all the newcomers, it was really tough to be on radio. It was not used to, and it was a bit the same in the live music scene. So that's the area where I work. Like on the festivals, the Swiss acts, they only have small slots on small stages, early slots. And all this changed within the last 15 years or 10 years. And it depends on the content as well, because the acts went on with music which feeds to radio, and then radios were much more listening to it and then playing it, and it changed the profile also for the live scene, and mostly on festivals, because now you've got Swiss acts who can headline festivals, and it has a bit changed, but without any quota like they have in France or in Canada. It was almost natural, and it came like this because I think there were good content, and then good efforts together between the live side live industry and the radio industry.
Do you think things like the street parade and the open air festival that is on here, is that something that's sort of helped develop the scene here?
Sure, because radio stations are very present on festivals and on that kind of events. And now that there are more Swiss acts on that kind of events, it gives them a platform, a visibility which is stronger, of course, yeah.
Now, Toshi, as you know, is in an outfit called UFO, which I only just joined the dots when that was announced. So, Toshi is a DJ and a music producer, and you do the radio show, and you also DJ out in the clubs. What do you see in Japan happening as far as the radio and Japanese artists being played on the radio?
Also in Japan, that really changed around this 20 years. Before that, the FM station more played international music, and Japanese music is a different frequency called AM. FM and AM. AM play Japanese domestic music, and FM is international. But since maybe these 10 years, I don't know why, the culture is more, pushing domestic one, including music, and also, like comics, and also movie stuff. And on the chart, the music I just checking 1 hour ago on the site, top 10 is 80%, Japanese music. International only Chemical Brothers, and also Disclosures, something like that. So,
now, UFO were quite. Well, for me, they were broke down a lot of barriers as far as they were the first Japanese jazz, electronic infused act that I knew of. Did you get much support back at home by radio when you were, putting out records as UFO?
I think, that time was supported little bit, maybe I think more outside of Japan. The more radio and music journalists supporting about us. So that's why it isn't become international, I think. So.
But now you see a difference, yes?
Yeah, very different. So, everywhere I think, the label pushing only one tunes before album releases, something like that. So very difficult to find, any other tracks. So only one tune choose. So, pushing only one tune. So, yeah, it's quite, really changed.
Tell us about your show. Do you incorporate much Japanese music yourself in?
To be honest, I try to find a nice one, but it's quite very difficult. Japanese people rap, the new generation rap the domestic music, but maybe getting older, very difficult to find. But still try to find the new music from Japan. So I have a show tomorrow at the studio at the 4 Point Hotel from 10. So I try to play Japanese good music one.
Good. Oliver, what's your take on all of this?
Well, I'm not a big fan of quota, to be frank on this. I agree pretty much with Seb's idea of the changes in Swiss music scene in the recent 15 years. I think it's really a question about the quality of the music, how professionally do bands, labels, live promoters, really want to work on music. And if it's Swiss music, fine. If not, maybe not. And I think we really found a big portion of self-confidence in Switzerland in the last 15 years, and that really made everything happen what Seb just told about. And I agree with you that you said at the beginning that you like to play local music at the station and that people rely to that. So I think every radio is willing and actually interested in playing local music if the quality is right. Toshio just said he's looking for Japanese music. So I think it's more into the people in the music industry or themselves to put the quality to a certain level where people have a reason to play domestic music. And that's pretty much what we try to showcase with the Swiss Music Awards, which exist about for 9 years now, and came at the right moment because of the phenomena Seb just told us about.
Do you think the awards, helped that situation as well?
Well, I think the acts helped the award more than the other way around, because the acts really were getting better and better and more diverse. So we had a reason to give them the large stage and the TV show we had. So I think we helped each other, yeah.
Now, from Berlin and Boyz Noise, what is in Germany? Is there any quotas for German music? Is there a body that's sort of supporting and promoting?
I'm not 100% sure. I think there is no quota, but I remember, I'm not so much familiar with the daytime radio. I work for an electronic music label, techno and house and all that. So that's pretty much in the niche still. But I think I remember, I read an article just recently that German music repertoire is like the highest since ever in the radio. I think that was like 80% or so. And but I think, no, there's no quota. Some of you mentioned like quality, that it has to come from the music industry to be recognized by radio and other media partners. But can I ask what quality really is? Because quite often it sounds to me like it's not sounding American enough, like in terms of big budget for radio recordings and all that. And I think now actually you have kind of this scenario in the last 10 years, you have more and more German bands, they sing in English or they sing in German, who are played like on commercial radio. And a lot of them just started like they sound, I don't know, like a rock pop version of this and that American band, or a rock pop version of this and that British band. And now I think it's changing a bit. But again, like most of the artists I work with, they never get any proper airtime or into heavy rotation or something like that. But some did, and over the last 15 years, it's funny to see, because I used to work with an artist called Paul Kalkbrenner. He just went on #1 in German charts, and one of his songs years ago, it got platinum, and radio played it like crazy. And when we started to work on this album, we sent out, I don't even know, like 10 CDRs or so of that song. It's called Sky and Sand. So I'm like in the middle, I'm stuck. I think the radio landscape hasn't changed so much to me sometimes, because I still work to the same radio shows and radio DJs I'm in touch with since 10 years. But then again, I quite often get like the same kind of arguments. No, this is too electronic, this is too clubby, too whatever, too special. And then there is like some sort of success with this band or this artist, and then they get signed by a bigger label. And surprisingly, quite often, the big radio station took on the next single, which is coming out on a major company. So I'm not sure what quality really is. It's like just getting back to that. I just think you have so many possibilities nowadays, and I think just sometimes it would be refreshing to see like more unique ideas in radio as well. Yeah, that's just...
Berlin is obviously known as sort of a mecca for electronic music. Does that, I suppose, reputation or that culture doesn't translate onto the radio?
In Berlin, yes. Thank God that there's really very a variety of radio stations and channels, and since quite a while, and that's really like exceptional, I think, in the German radio landscape. There is, of course, like other, I don't know, Munich radio in Munich or in Hamburg, but it's like very limited. So in Berlin, still, it is kind of an exceptional scenario. You have radio stations, private, public, or who are supporting music, playing music, which are like a little bit out of the box. So yeah.
Obviously, the power of radio can't be denied. Once upon a time, there used to be a thing called payola, where the record companies would pay to get their music on the radio, and obviously that's now illegal and frowned upon. But it does indicate the power of radio, and also how important it can be to be on the radio if you're going to get an act to, get traction. So there's no doubt about the power of radio, I guess. It's just about whether you can force the local content on there or whether the radio station wants to take it from wherever. But I'm interested also in finding out from David, because yours is a state-run radio station, they don't have any regulations, but is there any control at all on the content that you have to have?
We do, to be honest, and that's why I think not exactly what rules, but anyway, they say we prefer the radio station. We encourage the radio station to promote more and more local or domestic young musicians. That's why I think 101 just always have this kind of very big event, and also in order to encourage more and more young, give them a platform. Apart from this kind of show, we also have a lot of festivals right now in Shanghai. If you have a time to come to Shanghai, almost every month we have many festivals. Like Strawberry Festival, Simple Life Festival, many. So this festival just provides a very big platform for those underground artists or indie pop acts to show their talent to the public. And I think right now the stranger thing is more and more musicians and artists they pay a lot of attention to this kind of open air activities, much more than promote them through the radio, because they think festival is a more influential way for them to to show their talent. So what I'm worried is about to be honest, I'm a little bit worried about the function or the role of the radio station, to be honest, especially for promoting those artists, especially for the indie artists. Right now, I think I don't think I'm not very pessimistic about the future of those indie acts or artists, because since we have social media, we have internet, we have a lot of this kind of cell phone things. I think they have more channels to to show their talent to the public. The only thing is, it seems to me that there is a trend. They pay more attention to this kind of social media, and they say, you say, would you like to promote your music to the very traditional media like the radio station? Probably they say, I prefer social media rather than the radio station. So and also, as far as I know, like artists like Justin Bieber, like Adele. At the very beginning, they are not the big label. They usually independent label, but they use YouTube or something, this kind of means to promote their music. Right now, they become a big star. So I think I think I'm quite optimistic about their future, but I'm a little bit worried about what role radio station can play to promoting artists like this kind of artists. Yeah.
Well, I think that it's an interesting question because it also relates back to the previous forum or one of the earlier forums today about curation of music. Mm-hmm. And, is that where it's at? But with the new social media and ways to get music out there, and also with the ease of which people can make music now, do you think radios are losing its relevance in that sense because there's so many other ways that people can hear their music?
I agree with, just now somebody said, I think, media, I think the traditional media is also very important, but it depends what kind of music it is. I think in China, the situation is for the general public, they still rely on much, on the media like radio station, but if you play artists like those, from those independent labels, this is a big problem. But if you play, very mainstream artists, that's okay. They still, rely much on the, the radio things, yeah.
As a, go on.
Yes, my feeling regarding this is that, of course, it's going to be more challenging for radio to keep the audience, to keep the loyalty, because nowadays people have many other ways to discover new acts. And I think that it would be very important for the radio to be focused on new stuff coming up. And before radio is still very important. For instance, we would not put on a big show without a radio partner because it still have a big power. But what I experience in the live business is that if you get the crowd to see an act when it's very small, you get a loyalty, you get these fans to be very loyal and come back and come back. And for instance, with Florence and the Machine, she started, we did the first show here in a 500 capacity club. And so you've got these 500 people who feels that they were there at the beginning, and then they will come back and they will come back. And this artist grow and grow, and now in December she's going to play Hallenstadion in Zurich, and she's going to sell it out. And it went like this, and you experience this fidelity, this loyalty from the audience when you start from small. And I think that for the radio, it should be something like that. Being there at the beginning, not waiting for a song or an album to be a top 10 album, but getting the new acts, and so they'll get the loyalty, the fidelity, loyalty of their audience as well. I think it should work really the same.
Using Florence and the Machine as an example, what made you tour them? Was it the fact that they were big overseas and getting radio airplay overseas and not here, first of all? Or is it how important is it that you get any radio airplay at all before you want to tour someone?
No, there is a good connection. There is sometimes something between us from the promoter side and the radio. It's the label. And here we have Delia from Universal, and they are the label for Florence and the Machine, for instance. They are working on the radio side to get the airplay and all this. And of course, this helps. So this is important as well. And if you've got airplays, you feel that then the ticket sales will be better. It's in connection.
Do you look at the number of SoundCloud plays, for example, or whatever, to try and ascertain the traction of an act if you're thinking about touring them?
Yes, of course. All of these. In the past, we were only looking at album sales and say, okay, they sold that many albums, we can do this and that. And now this connection is not that clear anymore. So yes, of course, radio airplays, and then all the social media, all the web. Yeah, of course, these are very important tools to feel how many tickets we can do and which size of venue we should do.
Toshi, what's your experience in Tokyo with the effects of social media and the Japanese social media supporting Japanese acts and taking an interest? Does that affect what you might play on your station, for example? Because you can see out there in the community there's a lot of people that are listening to their music not on the radio. Would you therefore think, well, they must be good, maybe I'll listen to their music and if you like it, put it on the radio? Were you affected by that sort of thing?
Once again?
You find in Japan that social media, like SoundCloud or Mixcloud, and the number of times people are listening to music on those will affect whether the radio will pick up on the music?
In Japan, not really big scene about the SoundCloud stuff. Maybe more YouTube, but not really wide. So,
Do you yourself you use those tools to?
Checking everything.
Yeah.
The YouTube, SoundCloud, and the Pitchfork, and the other DJ shows, everything. Because very difficult to find a good one. Maybe on the table, under the table, there's something good one. So we have to carefully checking every time. So yeah.
And in your case, Oliver, how do you see it affect the radio versus the new technologies?
Well, new technology, certainly streaming, I think, is a big challenge for radio. And some, you could see streaming maybe as a pull media and radio as a push media in a way. People at radio are still very much used to decide what they think is right for the customers or the audience, while in streaming, just people, they have a huge catalog and decide themselves. So talking about curation, maybe that is a big decision for radio. Do we want to curate more or do we want to multiply? And I think that's a bit probably the best of both in both worlds. I don't think in the morning shows they will allow to curate too much, because that's where the broad audience is. So I think all these social media tools, not only talking about streaming, is a great first step to just grow your fan base and give also radios a reason to multiply. So I think it gets along very well if done right, yeah.
Daniel, what do you feel about this? Is it important for you with a label to get it on the radio? Or is it more important to get people listening to it online, through...
It is very important, yes. I mean, quite often when you work a band or an artist, a newcomer band, and you have all this, you like to try to get them on radio, and maybe you're not so lucky with it for whatever reason, then apparently like social media can be super important and can be very helpful as well. So yeah.
I think, and I'm interested in people's take on this, is are we all growing up as far as culturally within our own countries? Once upon a time, you imported American music, you put it on the radio, and that was cool, and the local stuff didn't get much of a look in. You talked about Switzerland and how in the last 10, 15 years, there's the groundswell of support has come up. Do you think that is we're all a bit sick of American music and a bit more positive about our own cultures and supporting them? Do you think that's what has changed? We'll go. You go.
I think so. Yeah. I think what you in the beginning what you've mentioned, like you play. It's more about playing music, local music, and trying to get them out there. And I think, yeah, in a lot of countries that is the case. I think France, Germany, Switzerland probably as well. You now have the moment of there's enough bands appealing to a big enough audience. So yeah, I think so. That probably might be right. Yeah.
Your take on that? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree totally. I think that is very important that you have the self-confidence, as I said before, and to grow your bands and your acts as a management, as a label, as a live promoter, the people you work with, and then make it bigger, and then it can multiply. Yeah, I agree totally.
In various countries, there may not be quota systems, but you will find there are grants, for example, or there are some sort of programs that can try and develop and encourage local music. Is in our respective countries and stuff, is that important, and how much does that go on? Would you like to talk about perhaps in your...
I think usually we do have this kind of shows, promoting those, not so mainstream music or artists. What we do is usually, because in China, we have pressure because, the rating is very important. It's, to be honest with you, the rating of the frequency is closely connected with people's, how much I got.
But you're not running commercials on these stations?
Commercial too, yeah. Yeah, commercials.
So the ratings, though, are they the ratings?
So for example, I host the morning show. They usually give me, say, if you have to, reach this, the ratings, you have to be. Or so the market share.
You call all your family and tell them to listen in?
And this is very important. We have this sort of pleasure. But anyway, on weekend, I think, the weekly show, what we usually do is try to, make people, make your station very individualistic or different from other stations. We usually, invite very famous DJs or celebrities to have a sort of a weekly show, but this kind of show, we usually give them a lot of, freedom, so they can introduce the music they like, or, I think, a lot of people know that radio is not, we cannot do, radio in a very, very commercial way. Sometimes we need to be a guide, to a lot of people. So what kind of music is, good music or something like that. So what we usually do is on weekend, we can, contribute some of the time, to time slots, to this kind of show, very special show. Yeah.
What I'm interested though is with the ratings. I mean, you're not running actual you're not advertising. You don't have ads, do you?
Mm-hmm.
You do have
yes,
ads.
a lot of.
So the ratings are important for who? The advertisers, and that's why they're saying to you, you must.
Both, I think, because, of course, if you high ratings, of course, in the advertise, department, they usually show those figures to those, it's very important. But to us, I think, more important is our, how much, we can reach. Because it seems to me, advertising department, they are achievement, and also ours are separate. We don't care about, the advertising thing. We just care about our criteria, and some things like that. I'm not sure whether you understand what I mean.
Yes.
So the ads department, they take care of their the ratings, because the different ratings.
Yeah,
different ratings.
I think the thing with ratings is often it can therefore affect the content.
Of course.
Which can be detrimental to the local.
Yeah. In the morning, I cannot play the music that I like. You need to keep in mind that you need to play what people like. Things like that. So sometimes it's a little bit frustrating, but right now I get used to it. Right now, yeah.
In Switzerland, is there much support in grants or funding? Even though there's not a quota system, is there active support there?
Well, what we do have, talk about quotas and stuff like that. I think there's a difference between a private station who sells ads and has to perform and a governmental, like public station. In terms of the Swiss Music Awards, we have a partnership with SRF3, which is a governmental station, and we have a system called Best Talent, which is a monthly TV show, sorry, where they really much curate that show. They discover new talents. Every month, one new act wins the monthly award, so to say, and out of these, they will nominate 3 for an award at the Swiss Music Awards. So what I think is great is if you have good results in terms of the audience, and then use that to on a big stage to introduce something new. I think that goes along very well. That's why I think it needs the numbers to be able to have that power. But then if you have the power, use it to introduce something new. That is a good mixture, and I think that's probably the recipe. But as long as it's not governmental and you just have to go for the figures, it's always difficult, sure. So I think they have 2 different jobs in a way, yeah.
Is there much nurturing of the scene in Germany from the government and public funding of?
More and more, yes. I think that it was a little bit slow when they started, or it took a while until the government realized it's rather an important job. If you have a look to the French market and what's going on there, they were like very active at an early stage. They have a huge office in Berlin doing all sorts of stuff, inviting bands and supporting touring and all that. But yeah, there is a couple of possibilities also for newcomer bands, which is great. It should be sometimes just a little bit more edgy, I think. And it always could be better and more exciting, of course. But I think what we have is it can be very helpful sometimes. I've worked with them on a couple of bands, and that's really good to have them. Also, they're also in Berlin, so yeah, that's great.
And is there much government support for developing talent or supporting musicians in Japan? The government?
Maybe more pop music or more culture, like like a comics, something like that. But not for independent artists. So, but time to change. So government, for me, the government very stupid. So they don't know anything. They think about anything, fighting or money or power game, something like that. So need to know, maybe politicians have to listen more music.
I think we're running out of time. So any questions, or anybody want to add anything? Speak about their own experiences from where they're from? No? All right, well, I'd like to thank everyone. Oh, there was.
sounds like you're putting an awful lot of pressure on to radio. Like with the internet, everything is opened up for the consumer, so we don't have territorial boundaries anymore, and we can inform ourselves as music lovers. And still, it feels like radio has to answer to all the questions and cover all the different tastes and independent and major labels. So do you not think that maybe now is a point where streaming and radio actually should start to complement each other to cover the mainstream audience as well as the indie audience?
Anyone want to answer that? No, I think that my experience with KISS, that the whole new technology is encouraging it from a grassroots level of people realising that, hey, I can actually make this, and then not only can I make it, but I can get it heard, and then if I've got a radio show as a DJ, I can play my music, I can play my friend's music, I can play some stuff I like from overseas, and it's opening it up that way. So it's you can curate quite a broad selection of music, but within your own niche, if that makes sense. Anybody else want to? Is radio really?
Yes, my feeling is that the pressure on radio is there anyway because streaming is there and things are changing. And then maybe a way to be, for radio not to be only something in the air, which doesn't really exist, is, for instance, your example with your app. I think that's very, very clever. And then all connection, for instance, with the live industry, because this is what I know. But now, for instance, the radio stations in Switzerland, they are very, very present, very connected to festivals. And that's a good way because they are not only doing promotion for these festivals, but they are there, they meet their audience and everything. And again, to come back to the loyalty and the newcomers, when I started my job, I was running a 400 capacity club, so very small one in Geneva. And we only had very small bands in terms, playing a 400 capacity club. And at that time, the Swiss National Radio were coming to the shows and broadcasting it live, even for that kind of bands and that kind of size of club, which was quite amazing. But then this radio was like not only the radio for cool music, but it was the radio for the shows. And there was this connection which made it very strong, I think.
Anybody else? Well, thanks everyone, and I don't know if we got anywhere, but thank you.